Before we start this episode, I would like to let you know that it will be a 2-part episode, so enjoy and tune in for the following parts soon. Welcome to the whirlpool of the unsolved, where the unsolved is questioned and dissected. I'm Frank, and today's episode we will be talking about the unsolved case of D.B Cooper. A mastermind, possibly. Someone who has escaped unknown to be dead or alive or dead at this time. A story that has more questions than answers, with mysteries in every line of it. Confusing and unexplainable outcomes of leads that lead almost nowhere. Where did this man go? Did he actually land and got away with all the money and lived the remaining of his life in wealth? Or did he fall and drown to his death and his body is still undiscovered? Who was D.B Cooper, really? Was that his actual name? So many questions. And yet, almost no answers. So, who is or was D.B Cooper? Nobody really knows who D.B Cooper actually was in the sense of a person. Many people believe the name that was given was an alias of a name. But outside of that, D.B Cooper is known for hijacking a Boeing 727 aircraft back in November 24th of 1971. From witness accounts, people believe the man was possibly middle-aged. Outside of that, there is truly nothing else known of this person. Only speculations that truly lead to nothing or nowhere. From the mouths of the witnesses as well as the hostages he kept on the plane after the first landing. They said that he was a very polite person as well as very calm. He never seemed angered or frustrated, what people would normally expect from someone who would hijack an aircraft. He was very clean, which was represented by the way he was dressed. He wore a suit with a black tie and a white shirt as well. He carried with him an attaché case. Now, the story behind D.B Cooper is a very long and crazy story, a story of mystery and just a lack of evidence. So I'm going to share with you, if you didn't know anything about D.B Cooper outside of the man that hijacked the plane. We're going to go a little bit deeper into D.B Cooper on this episode, and we'll talk more about evidence and theories in the second part of this episode. So, the story behind D.B Cooper. This man, walked into Portland International Airport and went to the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines, where he purchased a one-way ticket in cash north to Seattle. With him, he carried an attaché case, which is a suitcase, which later was to have held what to be was a bomb. He bought his ticket for Flight 305. The aircraft at hand of the flight was a Boeing 727, which departed on time from Portland at 2:50 p.m. The flight was roughly one-third full. Shortly after taking off, Dan Cooper, the name he used to buy his ticket, handed a note over to the flight attendant nearest to him, whose name was Florence Schaffner. Schaffner, after taking the note, only thought that it may have been some sort of business card, to which she just dumped it into her purse. Cooper then leaned towards her and whispered to her, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." This coming from a person unexpected, since he was very calm and mannered, buying a drink early on of bourbon and soda, looking like a man in his mid-40s. Schaffner then looked at the note that was handed to her and did as it asked. She moved to sit next to Cooper, who then retrieved the note that he had handed to her. So, what was on the note exactly? No one really knows. After sitting down next to Cooper, she had asked to see the bomb. Cooper then opened up his briefcase, just a bit to expose what she saw, which was 8 red cylinders attached to wires and a large cylindrical battery. After showing her the bomb, he stated his demands. He requested $200,000 in negotiable American currency, specifically 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane when they landed. Schaffner, of course, went to the pilot's cockpit to tell them Cooper's instructions. When she returned, D.B. Cooper was wearing dark sunglasses. The pilot of the flight, William A. Scott, of course contacted Seattle-Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control, which they had contacted and informed local and federal authorities. In the flight were 35 other passengers, which were told that their arrival to Seattle would be delayed due to a minor mechanical difficulty. Donald Nyrup, North Orient's president at the time, authorized payment of the ransom and requested all employees to cooperate fully with Cooper's demand. The Boeing 727 circled around for about 2 hours to allow the local and federal authorities to get what was demanded by Cooper, as well as to have emergency personnel there. At 5:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Cooper was told that his demand had been met. At 5:39 p.m., they had landed, which was more than an hour after sunset. After receiving all his money and parachute via Al Lee, Northwest Orient's Seattle operations manager, through the aft stairs to Mucklow, an employee of the airlines, he released all the passengers, including senior flight attendant Alice Hancock and Schaffner. Cooper told Scott to taxi the aircraft. While the plane was being refueled, he spoke to a few employees he kept to fly the aircraft of what to do. That means that they were planning out, and matter of fact, Cooper was planning out what he wanted to do, and they were cooperating. After some conversation and planning, one of the crew members told him it would be an issue to fly the way he wanted them to fly and where to. They came to an agreement of how and where. The FAA eventually wanted to speak to D.B. Cooper face to face, which was denied. While refueling was occurring, it was delayed due to the fuel tanker's truck's pumping mechanism. A second truck was brought out to complete the refueling of the aircraft. After all that occurred, they were finally taken back off around 7:40 p.m. Cooper had taken with him pilot Scott, flight attendant McLeod, co-pilot Radizak, and flight engineer Harold E. Anderson. After they had taken off, 2 fighter aircrafts followed behind the Boeing 727 that Cooper had hijacked. After takeoff, D.B. Cooper told McLeod to join the rest of her crew in the cockpit and closed the door and remain there. She did as he requested, of course, but before she went into the cockpit, she observed Cooper tying something around his waist, which she presumed was the bag of money. At roughly 8 o'clock p.m., a warning light flashed in the cockpit, which was indication that the aft air stair apparatus had been activated. The co-pilot Radizak offered to help through the intercom, but Cooper refused any assistance. This would be the last communication that the crew and D.B. Cooper would have. At around 8:13 p.m., the plane's tail section made a sudden upward movement big enough to have trimming to bring the plane back to level. At approximately 10:15 p.m., Scott and Radizak landed the Boeing 727 aircraft. with yet the airstairs still deployed at Reno Airport. Authorities surrounded the aircraft immediately. FBI agents, state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and Reno police. They eventually did an armed search and found nobody but the crew. D.B Cooper was not in the aircraft after a thorough search of the Boeing 727. So this is basically the legend and the story of D.B Cooper. There has been many questions and almost no answer. But this episode, as short as it is dedicated for you to get to know the story of D.B Cooper if you didn't know yet. I hope you enjoyed it, and in the next part of this episode, I promise to talk more about the evidence that has transpired, that has appeared, as well as the theories of D.B Cooper. This case is really one of those cases that, in reality, typing it up and researching, I've seen a lot of areas where it is genuinely a mystery and there is almost no answers, just thoughts and theories. And this is one of those cases that you don't want to miss. So if you enjoyed this part of this episode, I ask that you go ahead and share and prepare yourself for the second part, where we actually dip into the investigation and as well as some incredible theories and, of course, a theory of my own when it comes to this case. With all that being said, I thank you for tuning into this episode, part 1 of the unsolved case of D.B Cooper.